Breaking news, Brooklyn District Attorney Ken Thompson has died of cancer. Good evening, I'm Jessica Moore. First at 11, shock and sadness over the death of Brooklyn DA Ken Thompson. The 50-year-old made history several years ago and is now being remembered as a civil rights leader and a voice for criminal justice reform. CBS 2's Steve Langford is live in our newsroom with more on this breaking story. Steve?
Just 5 days ago, Ken Thompson announced he had cancer and would take sick leave. I intend to fight and win the battle against this disease, he said. Tragically, he lost that fight. Ken Thompson scored an upset victory 3 years ago by defeating longtime Brooklyn District Attorney Charles Hines, Thompson becoming the first African-American to ever hold that position. CBS 2 spoke to Thompson in his office in 2014.
I take many of these cases home with me, and because at the end of the day, when anyone is shot and killed or violently attacked, you know, it's something that I ran to prevent.
Ken Thompson, a native New Yorker, was a former federal prosecutor, part of the team that prosecuted a New York City police officer in the 1997 beating and torture of Abner Louima. Later, in private practice, Thompson represented Nafissatou Diallo, a Manhattan hotel housekeeper who accused French politician Dominique Strauss-Kahn of sexual assault, a case eventually dropped by the Manhattan district attorney.
We lost a revolutionary great man.
Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce President Carlos Shishura says he and his borough have lost a friend.
I mean, a young man who was really dedicated to the people of this borough, who understood adversity and struggle from a personal basis.
Expressions of sadness and mourning coming from public leaders across the city and state. Governor Cuomo in a statement declaring, quote, Ken was known as an effective, aggressive civil rights leader and a national voice for criminal justice reform. Mayor de Blasio stating, with a life and promise cut far too short, our city was blessed with but a glimpse of Ken's unwavering commitment to justice. And Police Commissioner James O'Neill affirming he dedicated his life to the pursuit of justice and his legacy will live on through his contributions to the criminal justice system. Governor Cuomo has ordered all state flags to fly at half-staff as a tribute to the Brooklyn DA. Thompson leaves behind his wife and 2 children, along with his mother, father, brother, and sister. His family was at his side at Memorial Sloan Kettering when he died today. Jessica.
Our thoughts with his family tonight. Steve, thank you. Crews are...
Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. Today we have Carolyn Lopez. Her son was shot some 13 years ago.
Yes.
And her grandson, Carlos Lopez Jr., has joined us. And he has no recollection of his father, and he's here to express what happens to the family in these cases. Well, we brought up Ken Thompson, DA in Brooklyn, whose austere, attitude about criminals, especially police criminals, which my co-host Graham Weatherspoon is well aware of. To see him pass in a situation like this, at a time that when your son was killed, if Ken Thompson had been DA, we might have seen some justice.
Yes.
You know, so it's timely that we mention Ken Thompson in the reference to your case and many other cases that went by the wayside because Ken Thompson wasn't around. Now, what do we do with him gone? What good he did while he was here was well noted. Comments, Graham, about Ken?
Well, Ken had a path to travel that had been somewhat hewn by a few other people who attempted to wage a war against Charles Hines over the years. And what I mean is that there were people that chose to run against Ken Thompson. Not Ken Thompson, I'm sorry, Charles Hines. There were people that chose to run against Charles Hines, and in the process, they were cut down. They were cut down by the political machine, the nefarious movements of D.A. Thompson, I keep saying Thompson, I'm sorry, Charles Hines. We know that Charles Hines came into office on the back of Mr. Griffith, who had been killed out in Howard Beach. That's how he got into office, riding
Is that right? I didn't know
riding
that.
the back of a dead black man. And then when
okay.
Hines got in office, he did everything he could with the help of a crooked detective to send black people to prison for crimes they didn't commit for over 20 years. There was an attorney, a friend of mine, Casilda Roper Simpson. Her sister is also an attorney. She chose to run against Charles Hines years ago. And what Charles Hines did, he had charges brought up against her and had her disbarred from practicing law because she dared to run against him for the office that he held.
Well, introduce this case here and how best Ken Thompson might have handled it if he was DA at the time, which is 2003.
2003.
Yes.
And we've had some reoccurrence. You had a meeting with the DA's office, was
Yes,
it? Last year.
last year.
Last year. And there's some revelation that happened during this meeting.
Yes, that they told me that my son died for no reason, and he died for no reason. He wasn't in the building. They never found no gun on him, which they said that the cop shot my son while he was in his car, the officer.
Okay.
He never identified himself as officers. And when he shot Carlos, he said that Carlos was pointing a gun at him. But if he was pointing a gun at him, the way the position was on Gates and Marcus Garvey, Carlos was on the left side of Marcus Garvey. He had bought 2 CDs off a CD man. There was a shootout. The officer backed up and made a left
A
on Marcus
shootout
Garvey.
between who?
It was a shootout. 6 guys were shooting at another individual in
Okay.
685 Gates Avenue.
Okay.
And Carlos wasn't nowhere on that side of that street. He was on the opposite side, which is a boxing ring.
So what I read in the news report was that he was shot after he killed somebody else.
That's what they said. He killed somebody
So
else.
that's the story.
That's the story.
Okay.
But at the DA office, they confirmed that Carlos never was in the building and he never killed
Oh,
James
the police told you this,
The DA office told me this.
which contradictory to, oh, they didn't remember what the reports were 13
Exactly.
years ago?
Yes.
Oh,
You see,
I see. Oh, my goodness.
this scenario.
They didn't know the lie that was told.
Because they never read, I even gave them,
I
at the
see.
time, I didn't have the transcripts.
Okay.
But when Ken was running for the DA
Yeah.
office, I worked with him.
Oh,
And-
you work with Ken?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And I had the depositions. So when I showed him that, he asked me that I have the transcripts. I said no. He said, "What if the docket number?" When I went to grand jury, I said the case never went there.
So if Ken had stayed alive, he would have helped you with this case?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
You see, this was the pattern of
goodness.
Charles Hines.
Wow.
The DA can choose to seek an indictment on a case or not.
Right.
But the district attorney's job is to advocate for the victim in any case
Right.
where a crime has been committed, regardless of who the perpetrator is. Whether it's a police officer, anybody, it doesn't make any difference. The district attorney's job is to advocate for the victim, especially when that victim is deceased.
Right.
It is the family now that has to get closure with regard to what has transpired to their loved one. So Charles Hines did not choose to place this case before a grand jury. He basically said, well, it's okay. We got it covered. The New York Times did a story. The Daily News did a story. And they said that he had a gun and he was shot, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah. So the only reason this came out is because you knew Ken Thompson?
Right.
Okay.
I went to, my sister is, she retired, and she is part of, like, being on the board. She lives in East New York.
Okay.
So she is friends with Hakeem Jeffrey.
Okay.
So Hakeem Jeffrey introduced me to Ken Thompson, and
Okay.
I helped him with the campaign. So at the time when he asked me what did I have, I showed him. It was on a Sunday after church, and I went to the office on Fulton and Grand Street.
Okay.
That's not too far from where I live. But then when he looked at the clothing, and he even outlined with a yellow a highlighter, and he said, but the picture you have with your son clothing it's not what the officer said. So right here shows that they shot the wrong person. And all 3 officers that was involved in my son's case, they all had 3 different stories and 3 different clothing. My son had on black and red Fila sneakers with a black and red DKNY sweatsuit. And it was a short T-shirt and it had DKNY going across and black sweatpants. They say he had on, the shooter, Alfred Robinson, said Carlos had on a black leather jacket, black boots, and black jeans. The original shooter had that on.
Okay.
And he say he lost, now he's saying at the meeting, they say he lost sight of the perp. This is what was said at the meeting at Ken Thompson's office. So
See, they always ask us if we maintained a visual on the suspect that you're chasing.
Yeah.
At any time, if you lose sight, now it becomes a question, because if a guy turns a corner, you know, you may not see him. He may go into a building, whatever. The information that Ken pointed out in the paperwork gives rise to a cover-up. He's not wearing leather. He's not wearing black jeans. He's not wearing boots. He had on a DKNY sweatsuit. So he's walking on one side of the street. The perp is on the other side of the street.
Well, let's go to Carlos Jr. I know you're hearing all this, and well, you're 13 now, and all this news about police brutality and all the shootings. I'm sure you keep up with all this stuff, obviously, because you're involved, and you're the aftermath of what happens to people and how it affects people, this injustice. I mean, I'm sure you're kind of bitter and angry, and we'd like you to express yourself with all that you can muster up. I'm sure it's difficult to talk about. I mean, that's your DNA, you know? So just give us a few words. Don't be nervous about it. Feel free to express how you feel. No, it's difficult. Just give us a few words. Take your time. You just show the pain right there.
How you feel? Talk how you feel.
No, we want to hear from the youth, because people need to see how it affects you.
See, this is part of the problem that I've been saying for years, that no attention is being given to the family members. After the cameras have gone, after the funeral, what happens to the family? And it is undoubted that everybody is traumatized in this process. Here is Carlos, who was in the womb. He was in his mother's womb at the time that his father passed. So he now doesn't know anything about his father other than what he's told by family members. And the negative press that was written about him by the New York Times and the Daily News, which was all fictitious. This is another side to police injustice. The dead are dead. They're not suffering, but the families are suffering. And this is an ongoing crime, because there is no counseling, there is very little help that the state is looking to provide for families after these incidents take place. You know, he mentioned Ken Thompson working on Abner Louima. And I was in Washington with Abner after that incident, and I could see the damage that the incident had done to Abner. And he was even wearing a bulletproof vest on the day that I was working with him. So trauma is a real thing. It affects people not only psychologically, but it affects them physiologically. And the state needs to do what it can do to assist families of the survivors in these incidents. The state needs to provide the financial, the psychological assistance in order to help him and other young people like him to come back out into the fullness of life.
Well, we have, I forgot your name.
So, yeah.
Celia Osborne.
Celia?
Celia Osborne.
Celia Osborne. Welcome to the show. Well, wait till she gets mic'd here. You want to say something, Carlos? Just give us an idea of,
Say something. How you feel?
you know, say something. I mean, you're saying it now, but I'd like to hear you express yourself so we can know and how we can help.
Exactly.
That's why you're here. To let people know how you're suffering.
Oh, Carlos.
Prime time, and we're live.
Carlos.
All right, leave him.
Or maybe
wanna
later
talk?
on you say something.
Huh?
Are you
wanna
mic'd?
talk
Is she
private?
mic'd?
Yes,
Oh.
she is.
Oh.
Give us your participation or your part
Well,
in all
I'm
this.
cousin to the family,
Okay.
and I would like to see this family get some sort of closure and some justice for what has been done to them and how it has destroyed not only for this family but for other families,
Mhm.
because the dead, they do speak even though they're not here. There's a lot of things that occurred under the previous assistant district attorney that
Okay.
have, you know, wrongfully put a lot of men in jail that should not have been there, and also put a lot of men in the grave that shouldn't have been there. And it just needs to be looked further and deeper into.
So were
To
you,
bring the truth to-
did you know Ken Thompson too?
No, not Ken Thompson. I'm talking about
Charles Hines.
Charles Hines.
We know about Charles Hines. He's been there. How many years was he there?
I think 23 or something like that.
23
A
years.
very long time.
Too long.
Wow.
Too long.
Yeah, we've got a long history of knowing what evils he's covered up
Hmm.
or perpetrated himself by not doing what he's supposed to do, not doing his job. Well, where do we stand now?
There was a luncheon around the time when they was going for the election, and it was a senior citizen, the luncheon, and he was there, Charles Hines, and my sister was there, Nadine Reyes, and he went to her, he shook her hand, he talked, and he said, what can I do? You know, he was just talking, and she said, why did you let them officers kill her nephew?
Mhm.
And he said, what are you talking about? So she broke it down to him. They went in the hallway, they talked. He said, I'm going to help your sister. 2 days later, he had ADA Charles Gurrier to call my house.
Mhm.
And I was in the bathroom, and they said, ADA, the DA office. So I called, I picked up, I said, yes. Hi, Mr. Lopez. He's very nasty, ADA Charles Gurrier. So me, with my mouth, I said, you know, let me be nice. I said, what can I do for you? And he said, oh, your sister came in. She said X, Y, and Z. I said, get to the point. What can I do for you? He said, oh, Charles Hines wants to speak with you. And this, and I said, okay. So I said, have him to give me a call. So he called me. I said, yes, Mr. Hines, what can I do for you? I said, first of all, let me tell you something. Do you have a folder on my son in your office? He said, yeah. Let me call you back. He never called back. ADA Charles Gurrier called. He said, what do you mean by the office? I said, let me tell you something. There's not one paper in that office with my son's name on it, in ink, black, blue, or red.
Okay.
I said, you know why? Because you threw me underneath the bus like them officers killed my son for no reason. I said, but let me tell you something. You want me and my family to vote for him to be in another seat? I'm not going to do that. I said, because you know what? It's a lot of people deceased. It's a lot of people that lost their family. It's a lot of people that's in jail for y'all. And I'm not doing it.
Now, you're saying to us that they had no record?
No, it's nothing in the DA office or my son.
He had never been arrested, never been involved in any confrontation with the city. He went to church. He was an altar boy.
Roman Catholic Church.
Oh, wow.
He
Okay.
was not involved in any... At the time that he was killed, he was walking up the street minding his own business. He bought some CDs. He was walking to his father's house. Some other guys kill a guy in a building on Gates Avenue and run past these offices and go around the corner. The officers come around the corner, and these guys had passed the police on their way to do the killing and passed them after they did the killing. The officers wheel around the corner. Carlos is walking up the street on the other side of the street minding his own business. He doesn't know even who shot him because he's shot. But wait, let me tell you how bad this is. Carlos doesn't know who shot him. The officers stop. Now, the perp has gone that way. Carlos is on that side of the street. They go over to Carlos. They pick up Carlos and carry him across the avenue and put him on the ground next to the sweatshirt that the perp peeled off while he was running. But wait, it gets crazier. How are you working undercover narcotics and you don't have handcuffs, you don't have a radio, you've got nothing? So they flag down a blue and white sector car. We need some handcuffs. You know, we got to cuff this guy. We don't have any cuffs. The guy, the uniform officer tells him, put your hands behind the back. He's not responding. So the officer kneels down on top of Carlos, grabs one arm, cuffs it, and then turns him to get the other hand, and then he sees the blood. And he says to them, you didn't tell me you shot this guy. So now he's implicated with them, okay? By him kneeling on top of Carlos, there's excessive blood loss. He dies. Because of the fact of him kneeling, the pressure forced the blood out of him. Now, on the other side of the street, in the original pool of blood, is the bullet that struck him. There was an entrance wound and an exit wound. And the bullet was on the other side of Marcus Garvey Boulevard.
How did you find all this out?
It's in the transcript.
I know you're a detective.
It's in the transcript. This is on record now.
It's in the transcript.
It's in the transcript.
It's in the transcript.
I got the transcript.
As she's saying it,
Yes.
it's
Whoa.
in the transcript.
So when we talk about cover-up, this is what Hines was doing.
Oh, my goodness.
And when we recently asked for them to reopen the case, they said they would not reopen the case.
Ken Thompson wouldn't reopen the case?
But Ken didn't know when, after 6 months, Ken got in the office. Ken told me, you call me. He gave me his direct number to his office.
Right.
When I was calling, I said, let him get settled in and stuff. His assistants knew who I was, the ladies.
Right.
So they was like, wait, Miss Lopez, we're going to check the calendar. And then Ken got on the phone one time, and he said, Miss Lopez, I have a full calendar, but I'm going to get to you.
Okay.
I said, okay. He said, did you get the transcript? I said, no, they cost too much.
Okay.
So I said, I'm working on it.
How much do they cost?
Well, what's his name?
They charge you per page?
Samuel Dunstan, the church, they all got together.
Wow.
And the transcript came out to be like $10,000.
What?
Yes.
You're kidding.
Yes.
Whoa.
And I got them. I made copies.
Goodness.
I called Greg Thomas, that he's executive to Ken Thompson.
Oh, my goodness.
And I've been working with him from 6 months after Ken got in office. And he said, give me a picture, what Carlos had on. Everything he asked for, I had Mr. Samuel Dunstan to take it to him. And he took it to him. And Ken did not know all this was going on when I was working with people in his office. Until last year, when I called and Miss Ming called me, she was out of town, and she said, listen, I'm going to meet with you. It was April or May, and I'm going to meet with you. She came in off from the weekend from being out of town. I got to the office Monday a little late. They rescheduled for Tuesday, the next day.
Okay.
We sat down at the table. It was her, Mr. Schaefer, Greg Thomas, ADA Charles Garrier, and me and my daughter. Mr. Samuel Dunstan came after. Ken never showed. I said, where's Ken? They said he had an emergency. I said, okay. We sat down. I'm here. There's a table. They there. ADA Charles Garrier walked in. I said, no disrespect. I don't want to see his face because of what he did to my son.
Okay.
Because after all this, May 1st of '03 to May 8th, they released my son's body because they cut my son up to do all kind of tests and to find stuff on him. And they didn't find no gunpowder residue, no nothing. September 23rd, '03, ADA Charles Garrier called me in the office, his office, and I went. It was pouring raining outside. I said, yes. He said, the question you asked me, I may not be able to answer due to his job. I said, I respect that. He said, listen, Carlos, I advise you to get an attorney. I said, okay. I said, why? He said, there's no gunpowder residue, nothing on Carlos.
Right.
I said, okay. So he never killed nobody? He said, yes.
Right.
So I said, why he's dead? He said, that's a good question, but get an attorney.
Okay.
I said, okay. When I asked him, was there a gun found? He said, yes. He sat back in the chair. He turned around. He said, but the gun that was found wasn't a gun to kill the boy. So there's no gunpowder or no fingerprints on the gun.
They couldn't tie him.
I said, okay. He said, Ms. Lopez, get an attorney. And God is my witness. It came so sunny outside. I left. I called, what's his name?
What is his name?
God bless his soul, Johnny Cochran.
Johnny Cochran.
Oh, wow, okay.
He took the case. He said, I'm going to take the case. We're going to this, we're going to sue the city, the state, and the federal. He did his investigation. The next time I had an appointment, he got sick. He didn't come back.
Oh, wow.
When I was in the hospital with him, he was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
He got sick. They called me and said he passed away. I said, oh, what I'm going to do now?
Wait a minute.
Johnny Cochran died.
Mm-hmm.
Was
So now
07
Ken
Johnny
Thompson
Cochran?
died.
07.
2007 Johnny Cochran died.
So now Ken Thompson just died.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what happens now to your case?
Well, here's the thing.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Derek Sells.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Derek Sells took over the case in the Cochran firm.
Right. Okay.
And he's
How long ago was this now?
2007.
right after.
7.
Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, he took over the case. He said, Carolyn, his messenger wasn't, no, before that, in 2007, he said his messenger was on vacation. I went to Supreme Court to Syracuse Court. I made myself the administrator of the state for my son. Derek Sells said, oh, what he said, I can't, the messenger not here, I need to do this and do that. I opened a folder in Johnny Cochran's office where he was, and I paid $2,000 for my rent. Got eviction notice for my rent, and I did everything what Johnny Cochran said he was going to do.
Okay.
So as a mother, I did it.
Okay.
I said, okay. He said, oh, you did it? I said, yeah. He said, oh, we're going to do this. This is Derek Sells. I sat up there. We talked, took pictures, did this. 2011, I said, why my case not moving nowhere?
4 years? 4 years?
Yes. I said, Sean Bell
Were
case
you giving
came.
him more money?
No.
No, not giving.
No, it's just that what he was supposed to do as an attorney,
Okay.
I did it.
Okay.
So I said, I kept going up there. I said, The only time they will call me is the day my son passed away or his birthday. They will call and leave a message. I'm at the cemetery. I'm at church.
Right.
So I get the message on the machine. I'm like, I'm in the office like, what's going on with my son's case? What are y'all doing? Sean Bell case came and gone. Y'all doing other cases. What's going on? No, they're always a story, always a story. I said, let me tell you something. If y'all don't do nothing, I'm getting the feds involved because something is going on.
Yeah.
I'm downtown one day. I don't know what made me go downtown. I'm downtown. I'm walking the diner on J Street. Who I see sitting up in there? Derek Sells, Charles Hyde, ADA Charles Gabriel.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
I
goodness.
said, ain't this something?
Oh my goodness. What's that make you feel like? Grabbing a gun yourself, right?
That's right.
Ooh.
And I waited,
Wow.
and I went home.
Ooh.
I told my kids, and I sat down and I cried.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? They threw me underneath the bus like a basketball. But you know what? It didn't go all the way under. And my daughter said, what you talking about? I said, because you know what? They didn't get me. They got my son. But that ball rolled back. And I went to that office. Derek took himself off the case and gave it to Gerard Luciano, another attorney in his office.
Okay.
So they kept bouncing around. So now, 2011, November, they said we're going to prepare for trial. So what happened to grand jury? Oh, it went out, the statute of limitations. I said, you serious?
Statute of limitations? No,
I
there's
said,
no statute of
I
limitations.
said, wait a minute. So I let him talk. I went along with it. Everything. I said, okay. So we inside. We go to court. Ask a question to judge. The judge said, wait a minute. Told the officer took the stand. He said,
Which court are you in now? At that?
Federal.
Okay.
Now the officer's name again?
Alfred Robinson,
Alfred Robinson.
John Portellium,
And Gonzalez. I know
And
Gonzalez was
Gonzalez.
the officer. Yeah, Gonzalez was the officer that had, they
So
stopped.
3 officers?
Yeah.
Yes.
3 officers.
Gonzalez was the one that they fanned
They
down
fanned him down
to
to
get
put the cuffs
handcuffs
on.
and stuff.
Okay.
But backtrack, the 2 officers that was in the vehicle, Alfred Robinson and his partner, they said they was doing a drug bust at 300 Gates Avenue.
Okay.
300 Gates Avenue is way down on Troop and Gates.
Actually, that's further down. That's
Further
like
down.
by
Further
by
down?
Franklin, like by
It wasn't in the
Franklin.
neighborhood.
over
It
that
wasn't in
side.
the area. So
I know who actually shot your son.
Alfred Robinson.
Alfred Robinson. And the other
And
2
his vehicle.
covered it up.
Gonzalez was the one that they fanned out. He's the 3rd officer.
The handcuff.
He was the one with the handcuff. They didn't have no handcuff or walkie-talkies.
Oh, yeah, stopped the blue car.
Right.
And stopped the car. Okay.
Portellium, his partner, was the one that was in the car with Alfred Robinson.
Okay.
So he's saying that Carlos, when they backed up and made a left, because they saw the original shooter come from Troop Way on Gates Avenue with the hoodie on, went into the building, had the gun. They said they came up and the light caught them. Now, they saw the individual coming from Troop and Gates Way on the same side of 685 on Gates Avenue. Went into the, it's on the tape, went into the building, put the hoodie on, got the gun in his hand, went in and left shots off and killed James Hart.
Okay.
The officers on Marcus Garvey and Gates, when they heard the gunshots, they moved up.
Okay.
They stopped. They said the light changed.
But they don't stop for a light. Come on.
That's what they said. They stopped. So now, as they sitting there, while the light is still red,
You're kidding.
the guy come out with the gun, cross, stand by the discount store, talking to a female. When he realized after the light changed that the officer's in the car, detective, he ran down Marcus Garvey, which is the right side. The officers backed up their vehicle, made a left, shot Carlos through their window. He's on the left-hand side, running down like everybody else. Alfred Robinson got out the vehicle. Now, before then, he's saying Carlos is on the right-hand side of the street, pointing a gun at him. That he said, freeze. the newspaper, the commissioner said the officers never identified themselves as officers. But if you pointing a gun, if my son pointing a gun at you, he's pointing at your partner, because your partner is the passenger, you're the driver.
Okay.
So they said that, okay, if that was the case, how come your shells from your gun is in your window and your glass broke on the left-hand side, because you're the driver? The officer ran out the courtroom. The judge asked him, when you shot Carlos and you exit your vehicle, where was the gun? He said he didn't see no gun. So the judge said, well, if I got a gun and I get shot, would the gun be a grip in my hand or loose? He said yes. The officer got out ran out the courtroom.
So this is a judge trial?
In the federal court. This is in federal court. So they're having a hearing before the judge.
So what's the background on the judge?
The judge...
Because he was acquitted.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
We went through, it was like a week and a half,
Okay.
from November 2011 to November 2017. No, November 17, 2011.
Okay.
So, but every time they would catch the officer in different stories, he runs out the courtroom. So they kept putting, 10-minute resets, 15-minute reset. So they asked, they never brought Carlos' clothing to the court. They never brought the gun.
They destroyed his clothing
They
also.
brought a picture of a gun, which my lawyer said that could be anybody's gun, because they never found no gun on Carlos. They found the gun 90 feet away, they said, in a sewer, which...
How come we haven't heard about all this?
And remember,
Well, this is the way Charles Hines ran that office. I spoke with Ken Thompson earlier this year regarding her case, the Harewood case and other cases. Ken told me, he said, Graham, Charles Hines was destroying records like crazy.
Oh, really?
He said,
That's why I didn't know about your
there are
case.
cases that I want to do that I can't do because I don't have the paperwork. Charles, people have no idea of how nefarious this guy was. Ken said, he said, Graham, I'd like to do, there was another case we were discussing. He said, I'd like to do it. He says, I don't doubt that the cop killed the kid. He said, but I don't have any paperwork. The only paperwork I have is what the family brought to me. Now, wait, let me go further, because the police department, not on this case, but on another case, they said they couldn't find the paperwork. How do you have a police officer shooting somebody, killing somebody, and you can't find the paperwork? When you know that following a wrongful death case, there is going to be a lawsuit.
Yeah.
So Corporation Counsel and the police department, they're not going to lose the records just like that, knowing they're going to be facing a multi-million-dollar litigation. But this is what was going on with Hines, because between Hines
So what can the
and
feds do about
NYPD,
things like
paperwork just disappeared.
So why isn't the feds doing something about it?
Well, after the verdict came back with the jury, the judge actually cried, because when they came back and asked, the gun that they found was Carlos' fingerprints on it, and the judge said no. He sent the paper back there. He said no. So when they came back and they said the cop was fit for his life, so I was like, what? And the judge got up and he said, I'm going to waive the fee, but I want you to do me a favor and don't give up on this case.
So the case was dismissed without prejudice,
Right.
which means that case can be brought back into federal court. And what he was saying also was that this needs to be handled at the county level with the DA so that they can come back into federal court.
But it was a jury trial. It was a jury. So the jury came back with what, again?
They said that the cop was fit for his life.
That's the catch-all. All you have to say is that I was afraid that I was going to die, so I killed. They don't care who you kill, why you killed them. If you say I was afraid that I was going to die, I shot you, which is no legitimate justification for killing somebody.
Okay, right.
If you're scared, you need to be home with your mommy looking at cartoons.
Right.
That's where you need to be if you're scared. You cannot just kill somebody because you're scared, because if that is true, for a police officer, how many people are walking around the city of New York without a gun or anything that are scared? Okay? Fear is not a justification for killing somebody. So we have a number of things. The state legislature, we need to hold the elected officials responsible. This kind of legislation, which is called an affirmative defense under the law,
But why
needs to be
doesn't double
changed.
jeopardy come into this picture?
It wouldn't be double jeopardy. Because if you're
But he was
introducing
tried for murder.
Wrongful death.
wrongful
Say again?
death.
It was tried for wrongful death.
So the next
The
indictment?
case never came into Kings County. It was in the federal district.
Oh,
It's
okay.
in the federal district.
All right,
The
so
case was never put before a grand jury in Kings County by Hines. He wouldn't do it. There were other cases that he never put before the grand jury regarding police shootings, and I can name some of them because I know the families.
in federal court, it was just civil. Is that what you're saying?
Did you go for civil rights on that, or what?
No, I don't even know. It just went to federal court.
Okay.
That's the only thing. I don't know. It's like they just threw me underneath the bus. But only thing, after that, I kept going back to the federal court.
Okay.
And people in there was helping me. I went upstairs, talked to the assistant to the judge. He couldn't talk to me. But I went to him recently, after last year, and I said, listen, I had a meeting at DA's office, and they told me that Carlos died for no reason, and his secretary was like, what? And it just came out. He was like, hi, Ms. Lopez. I said, you remember me? He said, yes. He said, new evidence? I said, yes. So I started telling his assistant, and she told him. So he said, so what the DA is doing? What Ken Thompson is doing? I said, well, I'm trying to see if he could put it in grand jury because it never went. He said, remember, I asked that question before we started, what
Right.
happened in there? And both parties came out and said, Derek Sells came that day and he said, oh, every time he tried to contact ADA Charles Gurria, nobody went and returned each other phone call.
But Gurria, Sales, and the three of them were
In the diner
in the
downtown
diner.
J
Gurria,
Street.
Sales, and who was the third person?
Charles Hines.
Charles Hines. So was Gurria still in the office when Ken came?
Yeah,
He was still there.
he was still there.
You see, so Gurria is like he was still dealing with the case.
Yes.
Obviously serving as a buffer between Ken getting the information. So we see where the continued problem was there.
Right.
Because Ken took ill early in the year.
So unreal.
He took ill early in the year.
'Cause
I mean,
even-
with this much corruption, I mean, how do anything go right?
At the meeting, I also asked for my son's clothing. I've been asking for from day one. And at the meeting, Charles Gurria told me, oh, we destroyed the clothing because there was no more use for you to have. I said,
That's-
what?
That's a crime.
How you? I
That's a
said, you
crime.
destroy evidence because the hoodie that the officers put on my son don't have a bullet hole in it. He hold his head down like this. And then Greg Thomas told me, come, Ms. Lopez, you're getting emotional. And I was. Because I was going to pick up that chair and hit her with it. And my daughter flipped out. And when I came out in the hallway, Greg Thomas said, call Ken. Call Ken. You have to get to Ken. But Mr. Schaefer said, and she spoke to him, and he said, Carlos never killed the boy. He never was in a building. He never had a gun. There was no gun found on him.
No
And
gunpowder.
and the gun that was found wasn't the gun to kill the boy. So I said, why is my son dead? And he said, he crossed his leg, and he said, that's something you have to deal with Ken. So they all putting everything on Ken Thompson. But at that time,
Yeah.
Ken was sick. I didn't know.
We didn't know that because we were trying to get in contact
Exactly.
with Ken's office.
They
And
didn't know that Ken was sick at the time. And
So how long ago was this?
this was over the summer. It
No.
was over the summer we were trying to get on to Ken, right?
Right.
It was over the summer.
But Ken
But-
had been sick for some time. He didn't just get sick. He's been sick for some time. See,
Remember I said, I said, was it from stress? I mean, finding all
no,
this
no,
garbage.
no.
Well, I
Ken
mean,
had
that-
been sick.
that
Listen,
can
I know
affect
Ken.
you.
I know. I've known Ken for years. Ken had been
When you
sick for
find
some
out
time.
all these lies, and
Ken was dealing with everything. The conviction review unit, 21 men he pulled out of prison who were serving time for crime. I know the guys that work in that unit. All right, those are some of the best detectives in the city.
yeah,
In his unit. And they're not police officers, they're retired. They work for the DA's office. And they take pride in knowing that they're restoring people's lives and giving families back their family members. They live for that. They've been doing that for years. There are a lot of innovations that Ken brought to the office. As it said in the tape, you know, I don't know if it was in this one or another one recently, other DAs around the country were calling him to find out, how do you do this, how do you do that, how do you do this? Because we have too many people serving prison time for crimes they didn't commit. There are white people, there are black people, there are Asians and Latino, all kinds of people serving time for crimes they didn't commit. But evidently, Gurrier was the buffer keeping the information from Ken. See? And Gurrier worked for Charles Hines, and he remained on staff when Ken came into the office. So as a result, he was the buffer, so Ken didn't get any of the information. The officer is still working.
the officer's still working.
He's still working. Still working in Brooklyn. I understand.
So what are your chances now with Ken dead?
I'm not giving up.
Of course not.
I want justice, because also I was told too to get involved with the feds, because I did spoke to an attorney, and she told me, when you tell a story with them cops lied in a federal court, that's the feds have to get involved with a situation like my case.
So in bringing new evidentiary material, a case can be reopened when you have new evidence, things that were not presented initially. But the key thing is, for the standing ADA who is taking Ken's place, he'll be in office. The governor is not going to appoint anybody. The EADA that Ken had will remain in the post until November of next year, and then next November there will be an election for the Brooklyn DA's office. So we now have to move to have this case before him. Gurrier has to be bypassed at all costs. He's got to be bypassed.
How do you do that?
Well, I was told, remember we had the meeting at my house with the Internal Affairs?
Internal Affairs.
And we was talking, and they asked me who was the ADA, and I told them, they said, well, the DA office contacted them and said they fired him.
Ah,
But then when we had a press conference at the DA office, I saw him. He was still working there. They demoted him, but he's still there. So I spoke to the Attorney's Affairs last month, and I said, why you didn't call me on the case? They said, Carolyn, what you're going to have to do is get the feds involved, because right now he's still there, and you know, when they called and told that he's fired, they let him go, and now he's there. There's nothing more we can do. You're going to have to get the feds involved. And he said, at least.
you have anything to add to this?
No, I'm listening. I'm listening.
said,
If I have something to say, I'll
He said,
interject.
at least you got to try to put this in criminal, you know, in Supreme Court grand jury, because it's like the officers told the whole big lie from the very beginning. So, you know, he said, I prefer the case to be started all over again.
There is what is called a writ of mandamus, where a superior court can order a lower court or a government official to do their job in light of the fact that they have failed to do their job. So if we can get the federal judge that she went to before, if we can go back, present new information to the judge, whereby he can prepare a writ of mandamus ordering the district attorney to take this case and examine it and do the presentation, then we can get there. So we're not going to try and work through other staff members, you know, in the office, that guy Gurrier or anybody that might be
Do you
blocking
know
the
this new
path.
person that's taking Ken Thompson's place?
No, I don't know him personally, no.
You know
I don't
nothing
know.
about him?
No.
He was picked by Ken. Ken
He was
handpicked
picked by
him.
Ken?
Yes, Ken
Okay.
handpicked him. So, and Ken had said that they're on the same page in
Okay.
terms of justice and fairness for the people.
So Ken knows something was wrong with him and he picked somebody to take his place?
yes,
Just
Ken
only-
knew he was sick.
Okay.
He'd been sick for some time. This didn't just come up a week ago. He's been sick for a good while. So the last time I saw Ken was in June. And I knew he was sick then. So the public didn't know what was going on, but those around him, we knew what was going on. But it's the new AD, I can't remember his name,
Eric Gonzalez.
Gonzalez. Right. We'll see, we will make an approach,
Okay.
and it'll be directly to him. Otherwise, we're going to see about getting a writ of mandamus from the federal court, ordering the district attorney, and we don't want to get the writ. I'd rather go to him and deal directly for the sake of cordiality and everything else, because these are the people we need to work through and with in order to get justice for this family. You know, we're not trying to antagonize anybody and, you know, hit them over the head. This gentleman, Mr. Gonzalez, he's new coming in the door. He's not guilty of anything, you know. It's unfortunate that Ken died, but, you know, we still have to go on. Justice has to be delivered. It has to be delivered.
You know, I had a roll-in for Donald Trump, but it would be comedic if we put him on right now. And I don't know if it would be a relief or whatever. But you want to say something before we leave? We got another 10 minutes, 8 minutes.
You sure?
6. Give us a little idea. You know, you could say a little something.
Say something. How do you feel?
Listening to all this, it's got to be bewildering. I mean, we need to hear from the youth.
Yeah, say something. Look at me. Look at me. Say something. How you feel? You miss your father? Huh?
You've got to.
CJ?
You'd be proud to hear you say something.
Yeah, say something. You want justice? Say something. Listen, look up. You have to talk. It hurts me. Everybody's telling me how you do it. And that's my son. And, you know, I have to keep going and keep going to get justice. I can't go to sleep because my son comes to me.
Ah,
He comes to me.
well, murder spirits linger.
And I see him in my house
Oh,
and
wow.
all the time. And he comes to me
wow,
and he
okay.
say, Mommy, you are limbo. Get up.
Okay.
I woke up.
Does he come to you? Have you seen him? Speak on it.
Open your mouth.
Well, if he comes to your mother, he must come. I mean, these are things that are true. People think it's hocus pocus or whatever, but
It's true.
Of course it
I buried
is.
my husband. He had cancer, and he
Okay.
died. It's going to be 3 years on our son's birthday,
Oh my goodness.
December 4th. Going to be 3 years. My
You
son
know,
going to be 30
well,
years
tell
old.
us, I know God's in your life. He's got to be. So he's directing you.
Yes.
So these spirits come to you and you feel the energy all the time.
Yeah.
You've got to, it's got to be touched. You've got to be touched by this. And if he's coming into the house, you know he's talking to you. He doesn't come to you? You haven't heard him yet. Well, look at his picture and talk to his picture if you have any pictures of him. You have pictures of him? You can talk to pictures, you know.
Tell him what you have in your room on your bed, on the wall.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Don't be scared when it happens. It's all a part of spiritual energy. And you learn as you grow, you'll become more alive with this. It's all a part of the growing up. If he's coming to your mother, he's in the house. Don't be frightened of it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be fearful of it. because this is a part of God's energy. You know, we're here to uplift you. You know, the Spirit of God is in all of us. And he's definitely, your Father's Spirit is here. Your mother just said, your grandmother just said he comes to her.
All the time.
And that's a relief for her. Look at that.
But he's not resting.
That's a blessing.
He's not
God's,
Tell her what happened.
God's, hey.
He had an argument, was it an argument with your uncles? Ramon and Ricky, right? A while ago.
Oh, this
And
is
I said, he said something. I said, go to the picture, talk to your father.
That's right.
And
That's
tell him what
right.
happened.
Oh, he
tell him what
talked back.
You know what happened? The
Yeah.
lights went off
Smile
in the house.
about it. Don't be
the whole
fearful
lights went
of
off.
it.
And my
Don't be
and his
fearful.
uncles ran out the house. They got scared.
Oh.
But he stood right there talking to his father.
That's right. I believe it can happen.
Yes.
I talk to pictures.
You know, my father
And my
died.
mother's spirit is on my shoulder all my life. My mother died when I was 22 years old.
Wow.
And you know, I talked to her last week, okay? And I was mad at everybody all my life, and I was a Marine. And I'm jealous of people who have mothers. I've been angry all my life, and I'm 75.
God bless you.
So listen, you're gonna have to deal with this all your life. So if you got some contact with your father, talk to him.
The
My
other
father-
day,
Go ahead.
me and my daughter, you know, we play little, you know, numbers, the lotto.
Yeah.
So his number is, the grave number is 7418. And I said, you know what? I ain't gonna play. I ain't got no money. I said, I dreamt my husband. So I said, let me play his number, which is 171, and the grave is 7418.
They're writing the numbers down while you're talking.
And his house in Cuba, because he born in Cuba,
Yeah.
is 204. So I played it. I had $10 to my name. I said, you know what, Carlos? I'm broke. I need money.
That's it.
He bought me $100,
Amen.
and my son took it.
You know,
7418 came backwards.
Here, we got to go in a minute. So here, the Gilchrist Experience. Only here do we talk about the spirit of energy in all of us. You know, the God in me loves the God in you. And stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience. You know, this is God's all over the place. And those of you that don't believe in God, too bad. Sucker Trump is going to find God. You'll watch him.
That's right.
Watch it. So stay tuned for more. And, you know, God's in this, so you're going to get justice.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience. And welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And Carlos, you're going to come back on and give us a little history of these experiences. All right?
Yes.
Thank you for coming. God bless. Power to the people.
That's right.